Hello, and welcome to EURAXESS Smart Talks.
The Smart Talks podcast series is an EU-funded EURAXESS project, which provides information and assistance to researchers at any career stage.
EURAXESS supports the European research area in its ambition to create a single, borderless market for research, innovation, and technology across the EU.
We support researchers in mobility, careers within and beyond academia, innovation, and entrepreneurship.
We strive to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and the world. Hi, I'm Darja, a senior expert of the EURAXESS National Contact Point in Latvia.
And I'm Leah, a project manager at IP&D, focusing on the interface between academia and industry.
Today, we will be hearing the stories of researchers who have made career transitions to the governmental sector, industry, and tech world. We will be inspired by their stories and talk about how to learn from their successes. We will also take a closer look at work EURAXESS Spain does to support these transitions to careers beyond academia.
When asked if young scientists should choose academia or industry, Nobel Prize winner Brian Kobilka said,
That's really hard to say. 20 years ago, everybody would argue that you should go into academic research because it's more pure research. But depending on the industry, you can do really, some industries, some pharma and some other companies, biotechs, do really cutting-edge basic research. So I would be open to look at both of them and just see what seems to be most satisfying to you.
Let's talk smart and explore this together. Our first guest today is Dr. Izaskun Lacunza, a researcher and science policy practitioner running the International Projects Unit at the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology. She's focused on bringing science beyond the frontiers of academia. She is one of the Science in Parliament coordinators, bringing researchers and members of Parliament together to discuss the role of scientific evidence in the legislative process. Izaskun is also one of the people involved in the design and implementation of the REBECA mentoring program since its inception. We are honored to have Izaskun on the podcast. Izaskun, welcome to Smart Talks.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
So our first questions would be, why are researchers valuable assets in a beyond academic setting, like industry or, for example, a startup? What skills do they bring to the table?
Well, we are professionals with a huge expertise in one particular matter. Using me as an example, if you have asked me during my PhD years, what are your skills or why are you valuable, I would only have been able to define myself as a super expert in a protein I used to work in, erythropoietin to be precise. This feeling made me feel very insecure, ultra-specialized, and with a very uncertain future if I decided to explore less traditional path. What else besides doing research around erythropoietin could I ever do? That was my feeling. During my PhD time, I never had the opportunity to think about my own skills and professional assets in a more transversal way, which I can do now. I worked in an international lab with colleagues from all over the world. I was able to write and read about science. I was used to speak in public, to pitch ideas, to solve problems. My equipments, for instance, the ones I used to work with during my PhD, were really old, and I learned how to fix them even. I was aware of European and Spanish science policy developments, you name it. We at the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology work for researchers to be more aware precisely of their own capacities and to widen their professional expectations. Science and technology is at the heart of all of our societal challenges, and we believe science professionals are going to be needed more and more in all sectors, public policy sector, to inform policymakers, the private sector, so they can both generate new knowledge there and align the visions of the private sector to our common goals, etc. So, in short, I really think that researchers and research training can be super important in very many different sectors of our lives.
Thank you so much. So, could you explain how researchers can influence industry and policy worlds?
We like more the word contribute rather than influencing, because influencing can have this, somehow negative connotation. We like the idea of contributing. We like the idea of researchers and the research community trying to play a much more active role in the policy world and in the public policy settings, because we have, I will repeat this a lot during the interview, but we have common societal problems that are very urgent that we need to fix together. The policy world side, the research community, and also the industry and society in general. And we like to talk about a bidirectional dialogue, if you want. It's not only researchers trying to influence or to contribute to the policy world, but also the research community to be much more open and permeable to the societal challenges. What are the problems that our policymakers are facing, and how can our research contribute to that? It doesn't need to be said, of course, but this vision needs to allow space for basic research as well. So basically what we think is that science is much more than doing research in academia. It's managing science, it's communicating science to different stakeholders, it's working together with different sectors. So what we try to promote from the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology is a no silos vision. Researchers need to work closely to the policy world as to better understand policy challenges. Policymakers need to find channels and interfaces so that they can communicate with the research community, and the same goes to industry.
I think that concept of the duality and the working together and both sides contributing to each other is really important. Do you have an example, perhaps from Spain, of somewhere where this has occurred or somewhere where you think it should occur?
We have recently put together the Science and Technology Office at the Congress of Deputies, so our parliament. And the way we work there is that our parliament commissions us with a report of a matter of particular interest for the Congress, let's say cybersecurity or artificial intelligence and health. They want to know more about what the state of the art in research terms has to, is in these particular matters. So the way we work is that we read as much as possible because we are researchers, but of course we are not experts in every particular case or report that we are commissioned with. So we read as much as possible and we interview many different researchers in order to get the idea of what's going on in the sector, right? And we interview 25 researchers, the best of their fields. It's, a super fulfilling work. We love it. But one thing that we realize sometimes when talking to the researchers is that sometimes they are a little bit disconnected with the public reality of their work in terms of what is the legislation regarding artificial intelligence, or am I working on a case? Okay, it's basic research. Okay, I'm playing around with data and artificial intelligence, but is the problem I am trying to fix an actual problem of my society? You know, this connection of, am I really working towards a societal challenge or not? And we think that much more in these regards could be done. And we have very nice examples in Spain of, for instance, councils, city councils commissioning research to researchers, to specific problems they have in the city, and then they commission a particular research to the researchers. And this is the kind of connections that we are very interested in. And I said it once, but let me say it again. This doesn't mean that basic research shouldn't be there, of course. But whenever possible, it has to be much more connected to the societal challenges we have.
You said that researchers are disconnected from the societal, but sometimes policy people are as well. Sorry.
Yes, as well. I mean, you are absolutely right, Darja. And I usually talk about the research community because it's the one I belong to, but this kind of speeds would be super valid for the policymakers as well, yes.
How do you support researchers who are looking to transition from the academic to the beyond academia world?
Okay, so we, as you know, the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, we belong to the EURAXESS initiative. And you are perfectly aware that for a number of years already, the EURAXESS initiative has the mandate to foster intersectoral mobility for researchers. We in EURAXESS Spain are truly believers of this part of our commitment, and we've been working in very many different means together with our network in the country. During the last years, we have been throwing workshops and training for researchers to reflect on their own capacities. We have set up a very successful mentoring program called REBECA, Researchers Beyond Academia, that maybe we can elaborate further a little bit. We have promoted new scientific professions such as science advisors in Spain. Everything we do at FECYT, we do it in collaboration or close communication with our network, as we believe that career advice and development should be offered from the institutions where researchers work.
Close collaboration. You mean that you reach out for the researchers, invite them for some brokerage events to meet on site, or probably also online meetings or something like that? It's like a community that the researchers could be a part of.
So when I say our network is the EURAXESS units network throughout the country, and we, the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, we are an institution which is at the national level and we have no researchers. So when I say collaboration, what I try to say is that sometimes we try to pilot things in Spain, for instance, the Researchers Beyond Academia mentoring program, but always having in mind that it should be the institutions at the researcher level, hiring researchers, the one that should start empowering themselves to offer such services. So what we do is to work with them, test the pilots with them, with the expectation, and sometimes we have achieved that they somehow embrace these new programs within their institutions.
Inspiring, just to make things happen.
We are trying to promote new ideas and things that we can do, because I mean we are privileged in the sense that we belong to the EURAXESS initiative. We have funding, we have collaboration with other international partners. So in a way, we have this privileged position in the country, and we want everybody to benefit from that position, of course.
Can you elaborate a little bit about the successful programs that EURAXESS has run to support this, including the REBECA project?
Sure. So basically, the Researchers Beyond Academia, REBECA mentoring program, started a few years ago. And basically, what we wanted to tackle with this mentoring program was something that was quite surprising for us. When you look at the numbers, you soon realize that most of the PhDs are not working in academia, but elsewhere. But when you look at the services or the support that these PhDs are being offered from their institutions or, from the system in general towards these new paths, you realize that there is barely no service to support this transition. This brings a number of problems. The first one is a very bad feeling from the people that want to leave academia or to work somewhere else because they feel they are quitters or that they didn't, perform well enough to become academics in their lives or things like that. So we decided to set up this program in which young researchers, PhD researchers or early postdoc researchers that already had in mind this idea of at least exploring other options beyond academia, were put in contact with science professionals that some time ago used to be PhDs as well or postdoc as well, that had started new professional lives. And I am thinking about, science journalists, science managers, people working in industry, in pharmaceuticals, doing consultancy, working in the public sector, professionals with a scientific background, even a PhD, but as I say, working in fields, in non-academic fields. So what we did was to open a public call, calling for these two types of professionals, researchers with, an appetite to look for other professional paths, and another call for professionals that were sensible to this situation, because the moment you talk to people that used to be academics and are working somewhere else, and you talk about this problem or this, challenge, they feel it, they hear the problem. And there are many people, many professionals in our country that were willing to participate in the program. We started with 50 pairs, and we have had editions in which we have had almost 100 pairs working on the program. So what is the program about? It's very simple, and I think it's a very simple idea. It's to putting together researchers working, as I say, in academia with other professionals, and we match them carefully to try to match the expectations of the researcher, but also of the mentor. And what we do is to accompany every pair during 6 months, and we ask them to meet at least 6 times. We provide them with a handbook and with some talking points so that it's helpful for them. And then we suggest they talk about, their career options, whether the researchers are prepared or not. We help them to reflect about their skills. We also suggest the mentor to introduce their mentee to other professionals and so on. And during these 6 months, we also offer them short trainings from us, from the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, about how to write a non-academic CV or so on. And we also throw sessions in which the pairs get to know other pairs, because sometimes you can benefit from your mentor, but it's always very nice to get to know other mentors.
Wow, thank you. Can you explain the idea of scientific advisors? How did the idea evolve? And if you could provide perhaps an example from Spain.
Sure. So the concept of science advisor is not new, but maybe it was a little bit new in Spain, in the sense of giving it a name and trying to somehow recognize it as a profession. There's always been some sort of science advice to the public sector and to the policy making, but perhaps it is the novelty now in Spain and in Europe is the recognition of this interface profession in between the researchers and the policymakers. This is the novelty, right? So the contribution from the Spanish side is that the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, we signed in 2021 an agreement with our parliament to set up their science and technology office. The objective of this office is to offer scientific advice in the shape of short reports on matters of interest to our parliament, as we were discussing before, and also to facilitate informal dialogues in between the scientific community and members of parliament. And for that, we needed to hire 5 science advisors to the parliament. So we had to think for the very first time what kind of profile we would need for this team to be able to do what we were discussing before, right? To analyze the state of the art of a given topic from all the disciplines point of view, not only one particular hard science point of view, but also what social sciences are identifying in that topics and so on. So we needed to really think about what kind of people we needed to fill these positions. What we came out with is that we needed people that could read research from all disciplines, contextualize it within the policy cycle, identifying the gaps or, what the scientific community doesn't still know about these disagreements, uncertainties. We also needed these people to have interpersonal skills because we are interviewing many different researchers. We needed these people to be extremely rigorous with a sense of identifying the core ideas of research and to back it up with scientific literature, because we are working for all the parliament from many different political parties. So everything we say needs to be completely backed up by scientific literature. So we need people that are very rigorous as well, with writing skills in Spanish, which was not that easy either, because you know that the research community is very much used to read and write in English, but our reports are in Spanish because they are for our members of parliament.
And how much time did it took first to introduce these scientific advisors and to find basically these scientific advisors?
It took us almost 4 years, the process, and that would be allow also probably for another podcast because the story is beautiful. But it took us like between 4 or 5 years to reach an agreement with our parliament. Also showing the appetite from researchers, to do different things and to have an impact in the public policy life. And it took us a while because we also decided that we were not only going to evaluate the CV,
How are the people doing in their jobs now? How are they working with the parliament? How are they influencing and connecting?
Okay, so what we do is we are a team of 7 people, two coordinators, scientific coordinators. I am one of them, and then 4 PhDs working as science advisors and 1 communications officer. So what we do is through our scientific advisory board and with us, what we do is to propose a number of topics to our Congress that we think should be of interest to them with a strong science and technology component. Out of the list, they choose 4 to 6, depending on the year. Last year, we worked on 4 reports. This year, we worked on 6. And in 2022, we worked on 4.
Thank you very much, Izaskun. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I hope that different parliaments members of the world could hear us and implement something like that. We are excited to welcome Gaizka Otaegi.
Dr. Gaizka Otaegi is a former academic researcher in the field of life science and has worked in strategy consulting and management in the US and the UK.
He is an advocate for researchers' added value in non-academic sector enterprises. He has been a mentor in the REBECA program and has collaborated with ICUSA, the Society of Spanish Scientists in the United States, in mentoring programs and career events. So, Gaizka, welcome. Thank you for the possibility to ask you a couple of questions.
No, thanks for both of you for the opportunity. Happy to help anyone who is looking to jump into any field away from academia.
Taking into consideration your extensive experience in the US, the UK, and Spain, could you name a few significant differences between the systems across the world, especially when dealing with researchers' career developments?
Well, like I mentioned, hundreds of them. 3 of them belong to completely different worlds. Obviously, in academia, we're talking about 2 or 3 different markets or countries on the way they focus their investments on science. And obviously, United States leads the innovation on research and development, but not only in academia, as well on any research within the private institutions. UK is, of course, closer to Americas due to similarities culturally. Spain, similar to many of South European countries, are slightly behind on the way they view the innovation. I think this is nothing new for you guys. You probably know better than I do. Innovation is not only events, it's not only the way we invest in our science, but as well as the way you view the market and the way you view the opportunity. And that's where Americas has demonstrated a much far smart view on how to capture talent. And the way I say this is because while I tend to use the same example, so hopefully it's going to resonate on people who listen to the podcast. In Spain, I tend to say that if you are born a lawyer, you die a lawyer. If you are born a physician, you die a physician. If you're born any other jobs, that's what you're going to be doing your full life. Why? Because in Spain, and I could probably say similar to Italy and other countries, the value of an employer usually is on the technical skills. So basically, if I hire a lawyer, I only see in that person the technical knowledge on the law. The employers in Spain, they don't historically, maybe it's changing now, has never seen the soft skills of that person. Well, Americas, obviously, they're not going to hire a lawyer to work in NASA, but there are a bunch of jobs in the middle of job types that people needs more the soft skills or the leadership skills, team worker. I mean, I know that this sounds like quite a standard speech, but by the end of the day, it's real. Some employers in Americas, they check more the soft skills more than technical skills. So within this mindset, when I was in Americas, it was started being common for big consultancy firms like McKinsey, Boston Consulting Groups, Bain, and the usuals, to see that PhDs, they had quite a strong soft skills that can be applied to any business situation. And what are those skills? Obviously, the whatever is based in the science is the problem solving skills. We did and we do have a quite structured mindset when we analyze an issue. Let's say that you build that hypothesis. In order to build that hypothesis, you do your analysis, you squeeze your brain to come up with a potential solution, and you work on that solution. Okay, that can be applied to the, in my case, the microRNA9 activities on the brain development, but as well it can be applied on a company who wants to expand to China, or a company who doesn't sell enough products in the market as they expected. So they try to analyze the data, they build a hypothesis, and they come up with a solution.
Super interesting. Thank you. I think that's a really interesting separation between the Americas and then moving into the UK and then moving to Spain. Have you seen, or how have you seen Spain's government and society assist researchers in moving beyond academia?
Just to clarify, my career has been, I think, around 11, 12 years in the States and 4 or 5 years in the UK. I moved to Spain a few months ago, but I do work for the UK offices. So I can give you some tips based on what I heard with colleagues and friends. The companies that can hire scientists or researchers are probably big global companies that they have presence, or the headquarters are in Americas and the UK. Or I'm talking about global companies who they are close enough to Americas that they can use America as a reference. So what I'm guessing or I'm thinking is that more and more companies are copying the Americas model to bring PhDs and postdoc into their own institutions. I'm talking about consulting, but as well pharmaceuticals. And by the way, I do work on consulting for pharma, but I don't know how knowledgeable are you on the pharma industry, but pharma industry has billions of vendors or agencies around there. You have medical communications, you have CROs, you have tons of agencies that they can bring or absorb the exit or the PhDs from academia. So Spain, I think, is moving towards the American system. So I think we are Americanizing, as probably most of factors in our society, we are Americanizing the recruitment model. The process, what Spain is doing, or any systems, workflows, information channels that Spain is doing to promote that change is really low. And the reason I know it's really low is myself. I have been invited to a certain academic institutions. And when I explain them, at least, what is the potential or what type of jobs they can access to within Spain, I see that most of the people I talk to, they do not have any idea that even exists. While in Americas or in the UK universities, they do have constant trainings and even access to facilities, hospitals, sorry, not hospitals, pharmaceuticals. Even my company, they do trips to these facilities to understand what they can do. Spain doesn't do anything like that, or I've not seen it doing it. And I think that's going to be a problem because Spain produces a significant amount of PhDs that the academia cannot absorb. So, or either you work on training and giving the knowledge on the career path to those people, or you're going to see a lot of frustrations. And by the end of the day, a lot of PhDs, I wouldn't say wasting their time, but being less efficient when looking for a job.
So if the university, for example, is providing these career advices to the researchers, for example, just skip this research and take your next step in your career.
Pushing people.
It's somehow, yes, pushing people away. You need to be very persuasive,
Correct.
I would say.
Correct. You need to motivate the people. Okay, so this is three steps.
Yes.
The most critical question that any researcher has to go through is, do I want to keep doing science? Do I want to quit?
Mm-hmm.
That the answer to that question determines the 90% of the next steps. That's the most difficult question that I had to face, and probably most of my colleagues I've seen in industry career, they have seen. Do I want to keep doing science? Something I've done, I've been doing for 10, 15 years. I do not know to do anything else but this. So some people I've seen that they because they are so afraid of what is out there, because out there it can be really cold, people doesn't take that decision. And you're absolutely right. We can provide people with tons of hours of trainings or awareness of what is out there. But if someone doesn't have the the answer to that question, nothing will change. Okay, so I do agree with you. Once you know that you want to quit, the question is what I want to do, and then is how I can get to the point where to see or to get to what I want to do. Right. To be honest, some people I've seen as well. This is the most standard workflow. I've seen pharmaceuticals reaching out to academia or PhDs, call them, and the PhD didn't even have the idea of leaving, but in that conversation, he was convinced. You are absolutely right. People are really, really afraid of what is out there. Getting out for that is super challenging.
I think you've already started to touch on it, but how do you support researchers who are looking to transition from the academic to the industry, policy, startup world? And you've already started to touch on it, where the first step is making the decision. But how do you come to that decision? And then what comes next?
That's super personal. How many people they work hours and hours and hours to don't face the reality? Or how many people they behind their passion for science? I mean, don't take me wrong, I don't derail this conversation because 90% of the people is really passionate, and that's why we do have a fantastic healthcare system and pharma system, because we do have a strong scientist. But how many people they hide their passion for the science, the fear of leaving science? Okay, and unfortunately, I talked to people 10 years ago trying to encourage them to do the move. They were afraid because it makes sense to be afraid, right? You're facing something that you don't know, and 10 years after, they started thinking, oh, maybe I have to do the move. So it takes years sometimes to change your mindset, and as I said, that's a super personal. Once you take the decision, the question is what I can do, what I should do. And many people, they will tell you, okay, I will quit academia to go to the bench in pharmaceuticals, because there is a continuity on your career, right? Because you are on the biochemistry, so you will go to Novartis, Pfizer, big companies to work on the bench. And maybe whenever you have clear idea on what you want to do, is try to understand what that job requires and start getting trained, informed, and everything. In the case of consulting, which I think is not that common of a jump from academia, the reason I like personally is because it was a high-speed sector. We know a bit of everything, but we are not experts on anything. So that gave me, rather than the science where you are the focus of one only topic, and I was microRNA 9 for years and years and years, and sadly, I was sitting in a balcony where I could study the whole pharmaceutical industry. So I was knowledgeable of a little bit, but literally expert on anything. So that was something attractive to me because I was expanding my knowledge. And then once I knew that consulting was what I wanted to do, I started networking, talking to people. Literally, I met a Spanish guy in a bar in New York, a friend of a friend. He told me he was doing consulting, so I invited him for a beer. I got him a little bit tipsy, and he gave me all the tips I needed to prepare for the interview. And funny enough, 2 or 3 months later, I could join Capgemini, which was a friend's consulting company working in the States.
Communication actually is the key.
Yeah, exactly. Something I've seen, and this is really clear in Spain, because you have been talking to me about what's the difference in Spain from employers. Let me tell you what's the difference in Spain from the employees or people applying for a job. If you go to Americas, and I'm pretty much sure you will agree with me, American guys, ladies, or student scientists, they are trained and prepared to look overconfident. So whenever you go to a meeting and you see Americans, they are going to be the first ones raising their hands. They're going to be the first ones talking as they really know what they're talking about. And sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's not true. So exactly, they are proactive of that. So, and when I was sitting down next to an American person, I was thinking, there is no way I can beat this guy, because they come across as such a confident guys, right? So that's what the Americans have. If I go to Spain, Spain is absolutely the opposite, right? I know where you both guys are from, but Spanish they tend to be much more conservative in their mindset. They are much more stronger in the decisions, because probably if a Spaniard comes across confident, it's because he knows the topic. But they tend to be less of show off. Mm-hmm. So what I've seen a lot is that the communication is critical. Yes. You need to be confident when you communicate, and you need to be clear. When a Spaniard comes to me, it's extremely formal. When an American comes to me, it's much more, relaxed, and tells me that he or she is more.
Yeah, so you see these interconnections with pluses and minuses, but ambitions are pretty negative taken here in Europe.
To see how the look of overconfident comes in. When I started working in consulting, My colleagues were like 5 or 6 people, and I was surrounded by people from McKinsey, people from BCG. I was surrounded by PhDs from Harvard, doctors from UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, people from Connecticut, and it was me, someone who studied in a modest but good university in the Basque Country, then in Madrid, and then I did my PhD with an okay career, and I was sitting next to them at the same level.
Thank you, Gaizka, for sharing your impressive story with us. We welcome our next guest, Sofía Cabezudo.
Our next guest is Sofía Cabezudo, a biomedical research scientist who has obtained a PhD in molecular biosciences and is an innovation biomedical scientist with 10 years of experience in research and innovation from basic biology to translational oncology. She's a skilled communicator with experience in teaching and mentoring. Sofía is a research manager in the Spanish National Cancer Association and a former mentee of the REBECA program. Sofía, thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you for the opportunity to know your story.
Thank you so much. And thank you to give me the opportunity to share with you my experience with the mentoring program.
So could you give us a short interview of your path from a PhD in molecular biosciences to being a research manager at the Spanish National Cancer Association?
Yeah, sure. Well, after studying biochemistry, I enrolled a PhD in molecular bioscience at the Molecular Biology Center in Madrid, in Spain. And basically, I tried to understand how cells communicate with each other and respond to different changes in nutrients in order to maintain their survival, which is essential in preventing diseases such as cancer or metabolic disorders. And as part of this PhD training, I spent 3 months in the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York to try to bring some techniques to the lab, but also I learned what I think that was the most important thing, that is the relevance of a multidisciplinary team to answer complex biological questions. So, and at the same time, at this moment, I started to thinking about if continuing or not in the classical academic path. But in this period, I met Oscar Yorca from CNIO, and I started to work with him after obtaining my PhD. And it was such a challenge because they are a structural biology lab. So the thing was to complement their academic findings with my cellular biology expertise in order to understand better the complexity of cancer disease. And during this period at CNIO, I'm starting to get involved in other things, such as communication to different audiences or gender balance in academia, also innovation in Spain and in other countries. And I had the opportunity to perform an innovation program at the university. And this was one of the points or the key points when I started to think in another way. So after that, I met the REBECA program and I applied to them to try to really understand if I wanted to continue in the academic path or I wanted to try other things. And I get there.
Very nice story. Thank you very much. So, but how exactly REBECA program was helpful to you in moving from academia to industry? So, if I understand correctly, you've already thought about your chances to switch to industry. So, you were pretty ready in your decision. You just were searching for the mentors?
Well, I had not the decision made. So, the REBECA program helped me in, I think, 2 key points. That was take the quality time to think about this thing, to be honest with me, with my needs, and to understand what I like and I don't like from academia, and what is the other side, the industry and the other options that we don't know really well from the academic side. So with my mentor, Javier Marquez, I spent 6 months working in different topics. For example, we spent some sessions talking about the different skills and identify the different competencies that I had or I have obtained in the PhD and could be transferable to other kind of jobs. Also try to understand the different positions in industry, in different companies, in different types of jobs, and what of these skills can be useful in that types of positions, or what of these skills I have to improve to get there. And also the other key point, I think, that is the relevance of connect to people and try to speak with some people working in other things, in other expertises, to really understand what kind of jobs are outside and what kind of skills you need to get there.
So what would you say was the main benefit that the REBECA program gave to you in moving from academia to industry?
Well, after all the reflections during these 6 months, I think that the more important thing maybe is the big perspective of the different kind of jobs that you can apply after a PhD. And also this point of take the quality time to think about that and to be brave to talk with people and to try to understand you and all the things to do the change or the transition.
I just wanted to add that it is funny that you are stating that actually how unfocused PhDs are on their own needs.
Yeah.
Devoted to their research and not focusing on their own.
Yeah, I think that this is a key point, because in the academic path, you are in your research and in your conferences about your topic with your people. And it's really difficult to take the time to look to the sides of the road. So I think that this is super relevant to be in contact with the other things that are occurring at the same time as your research. And yeah, REBECA, I think that is the opportunity to do this, the time and the break to think and to talk with people and to be listen and to comprehend the other things.
It sounds like the REBECA project really gave you this opportunity to look around, see what other options there were, and helped you in your career transition.
Yeah, sure. Because besides the guidelines and the sessions with the mentor, you have a lot of opportunities to talk with other kind of people, like roundtables with industry or academic expertise, and for example, trainings about how to do your CV or how to convert your skills to transferable skills, and how to identify, and how to change from procrastination to action. I think that is like
that's always important.
Yeah,
that's always hard.
Yeah, it's super hard.
So could you state what was the easiest and probably the hardest part of transitioning from academia to beyond academia?
Wow, I think that is too early to answer this question properly.
Okay.
But well, to me, the hardest part has been to take the time to do it at the same time as you are performing your project and continue with your research. And also another point was to take the time also to talk with different kind of people, because I spent several months talking with people and trying to understand the different options as well. And well, then the proper transition, the change of way of thinking from being in a laboratory, performing your research, and then to try to manage the research that I am doing now. So yeah, I think that the easiest part to me has been after the decision, the support that I have received from my laboratory and also from the people that I have been meeting all these months to decide to do the transition.
I'm curious what skills you feel you have gained from the academic world that are now helping you in the industry world. And I'm sure there are a lot.
I work a lot in this topic. Well, I think that most PhDs has like the classical ones, such as critical thinking, organizational skills, agility, multitasking as well. But to me, I think that the strategic thinking and also maybe organizational skills together with managing people, because in a laboratory you are really used to belong to a team and answer questions together with other lab mates. So I think that that three to me are the most important ones that could be transferable to other kind of works.
So what would your advice be to the young researchers?
Well, I think that the most important, or at least to me, the most important thing is enjoy the path, enjoy the laboratory, the environment, the research, because I think that it's different from any kind of work. But at the same time, being able to look around and to meet other kind of people and to talk about other kind of jobs that you could be interested, maybe not now, but maybe 5 years. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you, Sofia. It was really very nice to talk to you.
According to EU statistics, the number of researchers in the EU increased by more than 45% in the past 10 years, from 1.38 to 2 million. And as of 2021, more than half of them work in business enterprises, 32% in higher education and 11% in the government sector.
The number of qualified specialists in academia is increasing. EURAXESS assists by stimulating researchers' geographic and intersectoral mobility. There are already new areas to apply scientific approaches and knowledge, including entrepreneurship, industry, and scientific advisors in the government sector. As we saw in this episode, a PhD opens many doors into academia, universities, and beyond.
Stay tuned for more opportunities for researchers in more episodes of the EURAXESS Smart Talks podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of EURAXESS Smart Talks.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to share more with you next time.
You can follow us and find more episodes on the EURAXESS portal or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This episode was prepared by audio engineer Pavle Drašković, outreach manager Darja Aksjonova, production manager Leah Nerenberg, editors Isar Per and Miroslav Trajanović.
This episode is published under the Creative Commons CC BY license. Thanks for listening.